So excited that I get to have a chance to talk with CMO Sofia Colucci from Moores. I've been doing that all day. Molson Coors. I've had a couple.
Okay, good. I hope you've had a couple beers.
I'm so excited to talk to you because we were talking a lot downstairs about, this is a brand. The brand Innovators is about building brands and about what it takes to be a marketer in today's world. You're the CMO. The CMO job has changed so much over the past, even just 5 to 10 years. What are the things that keep you up at night and get you most excited about your job?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's great to be here. And so thank you to the Brand Innovators community for always hosting such great events. I mean, look, I think the reality is, as a CMO, I don't think it's changed in that you are ultimately accountable for results. And but with today's changing consumer landscape, and also just all the tools and tech we have, you have to be a constant learner, right? And so I think, and I know that's obvious, but you can't just coast. You can't just assume that the same playbook is going to continue to work. What I will say, the foundation doesn't change. You still have to know your consumer, know your customer, understand your product, what problem it solves, how do you think about drivers and barriers, but the how you do it is definitely evolving, and you have to stay on top of it.
Well, you've become so good at culture hacking, and in a great way. In today's speed of social media, how do you stay on top of it? How are you using data while at the same time not letting it hamper your speed to market?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I've got one of my team members, Vincent, here, who, oh, there he is. And he's a huge partner for our team in this. So he leads our PR and comms team for brand. And I would say, look, it's a journey we've been on, and I think we can certainly continue to get better. But I am proud about this idea of how we really are trying to build our brands in culture. And, we've been thinking about them as culture drops. So how do we really land our brand's point of view? And there's always going to be a role for paid media, and there's always going to be a role for big campaigns. And in fact, that's actually sometimes the hardest stuff to do, is to have really creative and hard hitting work that people watch on television when they're watching live sports, because let's be honest, that's usually the only time you're watching television at this point, or if you're watching the Oscars, maybe. But really, how do you get to great work that people are talking about that's not just a culture drop? So I think first and foremost, you need to have really, really strong platforms, and then you need to think about big, bold ideas that are true to the essence of your brand, that are ownable, and that have a place in culture, and then take that idea, that long-term platform, and have it work across many, many different places. And so I think that the foundations have to be there. It doesn't work when you're just doing these culture hacks or culture drops just for the sake of it. It needs to actually be connected to something that's a long-term platform and something that's ownable for your brand. So I think we have certainly lots of different examples of the types of things that we've been doing, but that's first and foremost a big principle for us.
Well, you have such iconic brands. We were talking a little bit about Coors, the Coors Banquet. You're wearing the shirt and representing. Vincent's wearing the jacket back there.
Yeah, we always wear our merch. We are crazy.
I want that jacket.
Yeah.
And so with using such iconic brands, how do you maintain the integrity of the brand, while at the same time adapting to now? We were talking about Coors as a banquet as a remarkable example of that.
Yeah, actually, Coors Banquet's a great example of it, and I happen to be wearing a Coors Banquet t-shirt, and we can certainly talk about lots of our different brands. So I think, again, this goes back to understanding the essence of your brand. So Coors Banquet, it's a brand that's actually over 150 years old. We're incredibly proud of this brand. It also has its roots in Western culture. So, it's brewed in Golden, Colorado, nowhere else, with Rocky Mountain water. So we're incredibly proud of this brand. It has its roots in just like something that it just so happens that, we're here in Austin. I'm seeing a lot of people wearing Tacovas. This is not just in Austin though. This idea of Western vibes, and it's huge, and it's become big and big and big, not just in Colorado or in Texas, but across the entire country. So that's like, again, the intersection of something that we own, and then that's something that's happening in culture. So what we actually started to do was, over the past like 5-6 years, we developed a platform which is called Start Your Legacy, and it's all about the legacy that we started and we created 150 years ago, and what consumers can do with that. So we obviously have our overarching campaign, we have really strong work, but then going back to how do you take that platform and that brand essence and think about really fun and interesting ways to hack culture. So that's where, we've done things. We actually, we're partnered where, I don't know, anyone here watch Yellowstone? Show of hands. Okay. So Yellowstone it's not just a beer that's sometimes there. It's actually like a main character, maybe a side character, but it's in there. It's in there. And so that is an ownable partnership and property for us to be a part of. Another thing that we did is we started a collection with Wrangler. So cross merch with Wrangler jeans. Again, thinking about partners that can really enhance the essence of your brand. And, rather than just launching a collection, we said, okay, well, what can we do really, really creative? So we actually launched beer wash jeans with Wrangler. So we literally took Coors Banquet and made the jeans you have acid wash jeans. These are beer wash jeans. And it was a huge culture hit, but again, ownable to the brand. So what's really amazing about Coors Banquet is that it has this legacy. We have drinkers who have, they're in their 50s, but then it actually happens to be one of the fastest growing beers with young drinkers, young legal age drinkers, by the way. So I always legal younger age drinkers always, but it's true. And it's iconic and it stood the test of time. And that's a great example of one of those, brands, what we do that with.
As a parent of an 18-year-old, I can please
no,
thank you.
No. 18. Yeah,
exactly.
21.
But it's on the horizon. Well, to that point, you've spoken a lot about zigging while others zag. With that example or any other one that you have, that is probably something that started with your gut, with a gut feeling, with an intuition that maybe wasn't in the data immediately.
Yeah.
How do you balance looking at data, working off the data, while at the same time using your intuition, even if it doesn't show up correctly on the spreadsheet? For
sure. I mean, Vincent, I'm a broken record with this one, but this is actually something that's huge for our marketing team. So a couple of years ago, so I became CMO 3 years ago, and I think maybe in the first 6 months, one of the things we actually did was we decided to partner with the Lions Advisory Board. They're great. And just to say, hey, we've done, you've done some great things with brands. We're not actually looking to be the Cannes Lion Marketer of the Year. We just want to do great, creative, effective marketing. And so we were pretty clear about that. But we actually went through with them. We brought our agency partners together. We brought, our marketing leadership team together. And we actually had a whole, a situation assessment process, where we got feedback from people and we said, what can we be doing better as clients of yours? So not just hey, agencies, we're going to give you feedback. It's no, how can we be better marketers, and what's preventing us from that right now? And one of the things that was a big aha for us, and it didn't come from just one agency partner, it came from a lot of them, is that, look, Molson Coors, you guys are doing great creative and you have really strong ambitions for creativity, but you're also letting data paralyze you. So what was happening was that, we have so much amazing science, neuroscience, bottoms up, MTA, brand health, BERA, you name it. And by the way, we still use it. But instead of using it to really optimize and maybe just refine our ideas, or, more importantly, think of sweat the insight, we were actually developing creative a little bit to kind of beta test. And by the way, I was doing it too. So I'm not this isn't pointing fingers at my team. We would all be well, the rules tell us that the product has to show up in the first 3 seconds. Okay, guys. And so our briefs almost started to become essentially cheat codes on how to get great work out there. So we actually had to pause that and we had to say, well, what's missing? And we realized we were doing creative brand hacks, but we didn't really have a framework or a common language on how to talk about creativity and frankly define what do we think is great. So that was, one of our agency partners, Rethink, who actually won the ad agency best agency of the year. They're great. They have their own framework called crafts, and it's an acronym for, how they think about creativity. So we actually thought like we need our own Molson Coors version of that, but really rooted for us. And this was not like there's probably a bunch of creative people here and account people, like these things don't happen overnight, but we really sweated it. And we were like, well, what do we think is super important? Like, great work needs to make you feel something. Great work needs to be simple. It needs to be connected to your long-term platform, and it has to have the essence of your brand. All the things that are intuitive, but like, really, really important. And by the way, you learn this over time. And so we created our acronym called MUSCLE, and it stands for that. It's like magnetic, unexpected, simple, crafted brilliantly, connected to your long-term platform, and embodies the essence of the brand. And we not only have that as an acronym, we have a logo. It's like everywhere. We brief on it, we give feedback on it, and everything is always, really looked at it. And like, it's not unexpected, is like, is this work cool enough that someone outside of the company would text you about it? Or is it simple enough that you could explain it to your Uber driver or grandmother? Like, we're talking about basics like this, but it's actually really, really important. And I'll tell you, like, going back to the science part, what's been amazing is that we still use science, but we use it at the right checkpoints throughout the creative process. And we still put our creative work through testing, pre and post, but because we're using this muscle framework and we're really sweating the insights, we're being really clear on what we need, the post-testing results have come out stronger. Because, so it's like instead of trying to beat the test, we've forgotten about that, and instead we're actually focusing on our creative guts. Things are actually then testing stronger. So it's been a game changer for us, and something that, we feel really proud of.
Well, you spoke about acronyms. You have a leadership acronyms, the 3 R's, the relationships, results, resilience. When you stepped into this role, which one was the most challenging of those? Like, what was the learnings, and where did that come from?
Yeah, it's so hard. Well, what I will say is I remember I used to work at PepsiCo, and I was there for like 8 years, and PepsiCo was a great place to learn the foundations of marketing. So I'm very thankful for my time there. And I do remember one of our VPs of HR did say, he's like, Sofia, PepsiCo is all about relationships and results. And, you are the type of person, like, those are areas that you push on. And it's true. Like, I love creativity, but I like it to drive sales. I want to sell beer. And I truly like, relationships, like, every business you're in, relationships are paramount. In beer specifically, we actually have a 3-tier system. So we don't just sell beer to Walmart or Kroger or whatever. We go through wholesalers. This was something that was created 100 years ago, post-prohibition, and they're our partners. And by the way, like, I love it. Like, I love meeting and, bouncing ideas off of our distributors, because they're really, really smart people who have been in the business for a long time. So those are paramount. I would say the third one, resilience, I just added that one out over time, because I realized, man, like, no matter what company you're in, like, things are not always going to be super easy. And I've lived through it. I remember, like, when my first company, I was at Maple Leaf Foods, a Canadian food company, very, aptly named. We went through a national recall, the largest in Canada's history of Listeria. And I remember I learned a lot about resilience and accountability from our CEO. PepsiCo, I was working on turnaround brands, challenger brands. And then I would say here too, like, in the beer industry, look, the reality is consumer behavior continues to evolve. And you do need to have resilience to think about the competitive landscape and how you can, not just stay stagnant, but really push and have a challenger mindset and be a constant learner. And all of that takes resilience when things are hard. So I guess going back to what, your question in terms of leaning in on one of them, all 3 of them to me work like in harmony. And it's like, you can't have one without the other. I mean, it would be great, honestly, if I didn't have to have resilience, but then I don't think I would be me. And I think it would be like, what job out there is going to not require resilience? Probably not a really fun and interesting job that pays well. So you got to have resilience.
Well, the amount of travel and flying you have to do requires a lot of resilience.
Yeah, the amount of travel, and I mean, I don't mind that, and it's fun, but I'm sure all of us, like everyone I'm looking in the audience, there's no way in how every day on your job is super simple. Like, we all need to have resilience to be able to be effective leaders. And that's something that you just got to embrace, which, again, I'm sure everyone here is doing.
You've also spoken about perspective. I heard in one of your podcasts, and if you haven't, like, there's a couple of great interviews with you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Please do. We just talked about podcasts before this. Do seek some out. You did a great job. You speak about perspective. Curious about your journey to getting into this world and how that formed your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, if you had asked me, I don't know, I'm 45, very transparent about that, 45 years old. If you had asked me when I was 25 years old that I would be sitting here talking to you at South by Southwest in this amazing venue and getting to talk about all these incredible brands, like, no way. Like, I would be pinching myself. So it's just like, I think going back to perspective, you never know where life is going to take you. Like, it's really true. I also think the other thing too is, like, back to perspective, like, if I think of this role that I'm in, I'm incredibly lucky. It also required, a lot of different experiences to get me here. My first job out of college, well, university is what we call it in Canada, university, I was working as a assistant marketing manager, like selling meat snacks, like literally like hot rods, which, by the way, it's now with the, chomps, which my kids love, I'm like, well, they're totally having a moment again. But I remember, like, at the time, my VP of marketing, this guy, Adam Grogan, super smart. He was like, I was an assistant marketing manager. He goes, Sofia, I would love to get people eating hot rods for Halloween. And, like, how do we get parents giving out these hot rods for Halloween? And I remember going to, like, check stores out for Halloween and just thinking, like, all right, I got it. We need this count. We need this packaging. And, like, don't put Halloween logos on it, because come November 1st, you're screwed. But it was really, like, even though it's kind of ridiculous, like, we're talking about meat snacks for Halloween, I got really into it and I liked it. And it's just funny because this goes back to this idea that, Scott Galloway talks about this. Like, you got to find a job that you like what you're doing, that you are good at it, and that you can make a career out of. But not necessarily your passions, because if someone had asked me when I was 25 years old, are you passionate about meat snacks? Probably not. Like, I was passionate about art, and I was passionate about all these different things, but kind of this recognition that you need, yes, like, follow things that you like, but be pragmatic about it. And you work then very hard. And then what ends up happening is, I think that the results and the opportunities end up evolving to the passion, because for sure, I'm very passionate about what I do right now. I'm super lucky.
Well, and we have a few minutes left, and I would be remiss to not talk about Beyond Beer, which is something, I'm sure it's passion point, where you have such storied brands with Molson Coors. You are now moving beyond that and expanding the portfolio. Talk to me a little bit about the expansion and how you're thinking about marketing and anchoring off of the points that you're already at.
Totally. Yeah, no, look, like, again, understanding our consumer and recognizing where trends are going. We want to meet consumers where they are. So about 5 years ago, we went through a transformation where we said, okay, we're going to evolve from, Molson Coors beer to Molson Coors beverage. And we're a beverage company. And what that's done is we're looking at things within beer, and then within other spirits, and then non-alc as well too. So, and then within beer, and in non-alc, like, some of the things that are really exciting, like the growth of non-alc is there, and you guys have seen it, and there's some great brands that are out there, and it's an incredible opportunity for us to take these brands people love, like Blue Moon, like Peroni, and put them into non-alc occasions. So we've done that. More to come. The other thing too is we've looked in different segments, and we've looked at adjacent segments like mixers. So I don't know if any of you guys, well, this is a premium bar, so maybe they have it, but one of the insights, we actually acquired a brand called Fever Tree. I don't know if any of you guys have tried Fever Tree. Yes, bartender recommends it and gave us a thumbs up, which happens to be an insight we are using for a new campaign launching next month. So thank you. But yeah, it's like a bartender's best kept secret. And for now, we really want to drive a ton of awareness for it. So I am pumped. I actually was just reviewing the work with the team earlier this morning, and seeing the thumbs up from our bartender in the back. I'm going to tell them about it because it coincides with our insight in our campaign beautifully.
Well done. Look at that. See, we're getting test subjects right here on the floor.
I love it.
It's fantastic. Well, listen, Sophia, it's so great to spend some time with you. Thanks for spending time here. And thank you all for your attention and appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Have a great rest of your South by.